Brother pressured me to sing at his wedding, knowing I stopped due to a friend's tragic death. Now family's pushing too. My 28 male brother, 33 male, will be getting married in the fall. The two of us are fairly close, more so in the past few years, which is to say that he is not ignorant about past events in my life. Recently, I got invited to dinner by him and his fiancée. The two were very obviously buttering me up to ask me something the whole time before my brother finally told me, so, /fiancé/ and I have been talking, and we'd really love it if you sang our first dance song, just the one song. I know you don't really sing anymore, but I dug up some old videos of you singing and she loves your voice just as much as I do. This could be your wedding present to us. For background, I used to sing all the time. I formed a band with a bunch of my friends in high school, and we were very minorly successful. We had a YouTube channel with a few hundred subscribers, and there were a handful of people that had their own recordings that were posted to their own pages. In this band was my best friend since 2nd grade, Mason, not real name. Unfortunately, when we were 17, Mason took his own life. Additionally, I was the one who found him. The band dissolved almost immediately, and our YouTube channel and all our own videos were taken down. Since then, I have never sang. Singing without Mason felt wrong, so I didn't. Not in the shower, no karaoke sessions, not at church, never. My brother knew all of this, but I wasn't sure if his fiancée did, so I started off with sorry, I'll have to refuse. You know I don't sing anymore in the interest of not totally ruining dinner. My brother was annoyed as hell at this. Come on, it's for my wedding, it's just one song, I'm not asking for much here and so forth. I continued to politely refuse and left soon after. Shortly after, I start receiving countless calls from my mom, who also knows the reason why and decided to harass me about not singing. It's your brother's wedding. I think you really should see a therapist about this. We all love your singing voice and it's been 10 years since any of us got to hear it. The two have since decided on a new tactic by saying that my song will be a good way to honor Mason's memory. The point about therapy aside, I've been to lots of it. I'm at peace with my decision to stop singing, Ida for refusing. It's clearly important to them. Edit, to clarify, I have really only ever performed with Mason. The joy I got from performing was not the act of singing itself, but from performing with my best friend. Okay y'all, this is overwhelming. Let me throw a few things in one. 1. I don't know if my future Sil is aware of the full situation or not. I'd like to think she doesn't, but I'd rather not poke that hornet's nest until I have to. 2. Yes, I've been to therapy. Singing is something I did with Mason, well before we started a full band. It very much feels like a part of my life that belongs in the past. As I said in the edit, my joy is not from singing, it's from performing with him. 3. Is that what Mason would have wanted? I don't know. He's not around to ask anymore. 4. The extended family is not blowing up my phone. It's 2 people, and it's not blowing it up. My mom called repeatedly in one day, and has tried to throw it in a few times since. My brother is mostly giving me the cold shoulder. It's only been a few weeks since this conversation took place. Update 1. This is premature, but since the post I made was more popular than I expected, or wanted, I thought I'd give a small update. Future Sil reached out to me because her washer broke and she wanted to come over and do a quick load of laundry. I wasn't thrilled about this, but I live close enough, I have an unit, and the laundromats in our area are not the safest. I was content to just watch TV silently in my tiny apartment while we waited, but she of course had something to discuss. I thought for sure she'd be the third person to try to convince me, but no. Instead she told me that she wasn't sure if my brother was giving her the full story. She told me that he used to sing all the time, he was in a band, but he quit when the band broke up. Which is technically true, but come on. I also learned that he had told many of his friends this too, about how he's always trying to convince me to come around and sing for all of them. He had literally never asked before the conversation, but was prone to making comments like, "Boy, it sure sucks you don't sing anymore. I know a lot of people that would want to hear that." So, I very briefly told her about Mason. Just the important bits. That I used to sing with him, then he died, so I don't have any desire to do so anymore. She didn't say anything for a while, but I saw her face go through about a dozen different emotions, and I'm pretty sure she settled on anger. Before she left, she just told me that she's going to tell my brother to get someone else to sing. I got the distinct feeling that it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. So, that's it so far, all quiet. Fingers crossed. Update 2. New things happened pretty quickly, but I held off on a new post because my last one was premature. Some things people predicted happened, other things did not. Let's get this out of the way up front, the wedding is still on. The wedding will always still be on. This was never in doubt. I think a lot of commenters vastly overestimated my importance. After talking with future sister-in-law, I did not hear anything from my brother, at least initially. I did eventually get a short text from her just saying that I shouldn't worry about the wedding anymore and they'll find someone else. My mom was another story. She called me repeatedly since I ignored her first few calls, and when I finally picked up, she was about 2 steps below screaming into the phone. About how I interfered in your brother's relationship and made things so much harder for them. And do you know how upset he is right now? It's time to put grudges aside and make amends. It was not an especially long conversation. I did a lot of self-reflection over the next few days about my relationships with my family members, and decided it was time to have a very honest conversation with my brother. I even booked a bonus therapy session specifically about preparing myself for this conversation. I called him up and asked him point blank if, knowing I will absolutely not be singing for him, he still wanted me to attend. He didn't answer for a bit, but eventually he said yes. I remembered a bunch of comments that said he may still try to pull something at his reception anyway using public pressure and announce me as the singer. While I personally didn't find that to be especially likely, my brother is a big planner/scheduler, I realized I no longer trusted him like I used to and said as much, and that I will only be attending the ceremony, not the reception. He had a minor freak out over this, "Are you fucking kidding me?" But then said it was whatever, and that I needed to come up with a concrete excuse for my absence so that bullshit doesn't overshadow everything, fine, whatever, and that I could no longer be his groomsman since that would leave an empty chair at the head table. We hung up shortly after. We have not spoken again since. Something that hasn't come up before, we both have 2 other brothers, 35, 26. Neither live in the same area as us. My younger brother lives on the other side of the country, and we don't talk especially frequently, so I don't know what, if anything, they had heard about the situation previously. Well, because he kicked one of his brothers out of the wedding party, he decided to replace the other 2 as well because it wouldn't look right to have just 2 out of 3 of his brothers as groomsmen, so instead opted for 0 out of 3. Eldest brother got kind of bratty about it. He included all 3 of his brothers in his wedding party when he got married and is mainly pissed about the non-reciprocation, but never asked for nor received the full story on our feud. I don't especially enjoy talking to him, so if he wants to blame me for getting booted from the wedding party, that's fine. My younger brother, on the other hand, made it his personal mission to extract every single detail possible from all parties. He called me up to get my side, and then decided he was going to join me in skipping the reception. He has decided to start brainstorming an excuse for the both of us. Honestly, I think he was looking for an excuse not to go anyway. He despises family functions. At this point I am praying for no more updates. This is just fucking absurd. The wedding cannot come soon enough. This is not related to the update, but instead to the comments/DMs I received. I have tried my best to be civil with the many comments of "Is that what Mason would want? Or have you tried therapy?" We are now 3 posts deep on this nonsense. I'm not going to be trying so hard at civility anymore. Also a reminder, singing was a hobby. I gave up a hobby. I was not on the cusp of making it big. I did not throw away my dreams. This is 5 dudes screwing around in a basement on weekends and occasionally playing at a bar, fair, or coffee shop. For what it's worth, I still listen to music and even will pick up my bass again on occasion when I'm bored. Update 3. It's me, the guy who quit singing because singing killed my grandma my former best friend/bandmate killed himself. Quick refresher right at the top, anyway. Spoiler warning, it's mostly boring. And yes, the wedding still happened. The last couple months have featured something of a relentless guilt trip from my mom. She was getting increasingly unpleasant, so I eventually just stopped responding to her entirely. I didn't block her because she's still my mom and I love her and I would like to know if there was a genuine emergency, but other than that she's getting radio silence from both me and my younger brother, more on him later. She had originally started with the argument about how I could honor Mason, then about how I hadn't finished processing my grief, before doubling down on how disappointed she was that I refused to move on, before she told me how pathetic it was to live eternally in my victimhood. Guess she got herself a Tumblr account or something. The eldest brother tried his best to stay out of everything, but my mom did try to get him on her side. Like I said before, he and I don't have a good relationship, so she probably thought it was a slam dunk. Not so much. My brother, to his credit, told her this whole thing is stupid. I do not disagree. My youngest brother made good on his promise and skipped the reception with me. He used the excuse that he had to leave immediately to catch a flight back for his job. He's a first responder, so nobody questioned it. Little brother also really wanted my excuse to be that I had started a new band and had to miss the reception to go sing at my first gig, because he is chaos incarnate and is to be feared. Instead I said that I had a routine surgery early the next morning, and therefore had to skip all food, drinks, and physical activity. I have a reputation for poor health, so, again, nobody really questioned it. As for the brother getting married, he kept quiet for the most part. We didn't talk much. I don't know for sure if our mom was communicating for the both of them so that he could avoid being seen as the bad guy, or because his now wife kept him in line. Either way, I don't see a way back to restoring our relationship to what it once was. I'm not cutting off contact with him by any means, but we're now on much lesser terms. One hiccup, somehow, I wonder, my brother got an inkling that this whole thing was actually an elaborate ruse, and that I was singing at his reception as a surprise. Our whole fight? It was to throw him off the scent that I was actually taking singing lessons the whole time. Presumably, Mason's ghost would descend from wherever and join me in the harmonies or something? Then the living and the dead would come together for the cha-cha slide. Apparently my brother subscribes to fan fiction. All info about the reception was supplied by my dad a few days afterwards. He was apparently super mopey throughout the beginning of the reception, but ended up enjoying himself by the end. Probably has to do with the fact that he's now married to a terrific woman who has been willingly putting up with him for 3 years. She looked stunning, by the way. Overall, there were a few murmurs about mine and my brother's absence at the reception, but from what I heard, they dispelled quickly, and everyone rightfully focused on the newly married couple. So, that's it. I still attend regular therapy, because it's become a part of my routine. Mason rarely ever came up before all this, and I'm presuming that status quo will soon be returned. It's not that I don't miss him, but I have lots of other stuff going on in my life, you know? I'm contemplating moving across the country to be closer to my younger brother. As chaotic and unpredictable as he can be, he was definitely my rock through all of this, and I'd like to improve my relationship with him, one small dose at a time. My job and therapist are both remote, so that simplifies things. It wouldn't be until next year when my lease is up, but it is under serious consideration. I'm probably abandoning this account soon after this update. Update 4. I thought we were done. I was content to let everything calcify until we don't talk about the singing thing sediment, and then let a few years of holidays gently erode it into something we all politely step over. Spoiler, no. 2 weeks after the wedding, my dad texted and asked if I could come over for his birthday. Very low key, just cake and coffee. I said yes, because it's my dad and because my dad has historically been the human equivalent of a golden retriever in a flannel shirt. When I got there, his flannel was on, the coffee was on, and so, unfortunately, was a YouTube karaoke queue on the TV. A wireless mic sat innocently on the kitchen island like a snake coiled on a placemat. My mom did the whole "oh, ha, isn't that funny, your father's friend left this here, what a coincidence" routine while the TV autoplayed the instrumental of Take On Me, and my brother's wedding song was third in the queue. I did not sing. I did say, clearly and calmly, that if they ever tried to ambush me like that again, they could expect to see the back of my head disappearing down their driveway and a very long silence afterward. My dad apologized, immediately, sincerely. My mom tried to pivot into just try one line, just to get over the hump, and then my younger brother, who had flown in early under the radar for dad's birthday and was apparently waiting for a cue, took the mic, announced, "I got this," and proceeded to perform the world's most aggressive rendition of the ABC song while maintaining unblinking eye contact with our mother. Then he walked into the backyard with the mic and dropped it into the empty bird bath like it was the Mariana Trench. He spent the rest of the evening rating my mom's coffee refills out loud like a pretentious barista. 10 out of 10, no notes. After that, I went low contact with my mom in a way that wasn't punitive, just restful. She didn't take it well. She did eventually leave me a voicemail that started like an apology and then somehow wandered into "I miss your voice and I know you think this is about control," and then got confused and tried to tell me a story about a woman at church who sings in sign language, which I think was meant to be hopeful, but landed in the uncanny valley. I haven't responded yet. I don't know what there is to say that I haven't said. Here's the part I wasn't expecting. The bride asked me to get coffee. I went, mostly because she has never once tried to manipulate me into singing and because she does this little anxious twist with her wedding ring when she's bracing for impact that makes me feel like I should be extra gentle with my words. She apologized to me. Not the kind of apology that uses a lot of passive voice, but the kind that has nouns and verbs and no escape hatches. She said she hadn't understood, fully, until she came across a scholarship fund in Mason's name when she was Googling something unrelated and ended up reading a lot of obituaries and tributes she had no business reading. She told me she had a long fight with my brother about honesty, because he had told people I'd probably end up singing right up until the week of the wedding, like he was writing his own fan fiction where the twist was a personality transplant. She said he's in therapy now. She also handed me an envelope. The envelope was from Mason's mom. I didn't realize they knew each other. They don't, really. But the internet is what it is, and my sister-in-law is tenacious when she's worried she's complicit in something. Mason's mom wrote that she was sorry if this was intrusive, but she wanted me to know she had always been grateful that I never let anyone turn Mason into a take-home message. She said she remembered seeing us at the county fair in his terrible cargo shorts, and that the thing she loved most was how we couldn't stop laughing through our warm-ups. She asked if I wanted some of his old stuff, not because she wanted to offload grief, but because she said it felt wrong having his bass strap in a closet when the person who wore it out the most wasn't there to yell at her for putting it on a hanger. I sat in my car with that letter and stared at a very dented shopping cart for a long time. Then I drove to her house. It felt like walking into a preserved season. His room is gone, of course, because time is not a museum, but there were still these little stubborn leftovers. Stickers welded to a bookshelf. A nail on the wall that used to hold something, and now it doesn't. She had a small box ready. The bass strap, a practice journal in which every other page was doodles of cows for some reason, a flash drive with rehearsal written in Mason's handwriting. She said she had never listened to it. She said there might be nothing on it. She hugged me the way some people hug their own reflections, briefly, with more gentleness than necessary, like you could leave fingerprints on a feeling. I listened to the flash drive in my car in her driveway because my self-control is a myth. There were 4 files. 2 were 20-minute stretches of us arguing about tempo and pizza. One was 3 minutes of someone's dog losing its mind. The last was a rough run-through of a song we did at a coffee shop, recorded on a phone that probably lived in somebody's pocket. The sound quality was truly criminal. You could hear us, though. You could hear the part where I came in too early and then we both tried to adjust at the exact same time and made it worse. We started laughing and never really stopped, and somewhere in there between the mess and the laughter was the exact thing I'd been protecting without having the words for. I sat there and let it play out, and when it ended, I didn't hit repeat, not because it hurt, but because it didn't need to turn into a ritual. I moved. I know I said I was thinking about it next year, and I know I also said I am a man who honors his lease and his calendar like a Boy Scout, but my younger brother found me a subletter who collects mid-century radios and plants and was very enthusiastic about the terrible wallpaper in my hallway. My landlord, who once told me that avocado toast is ruining the youth, agreed faster than he has ever agreed to anything. I packed everything I own into a rental truck with a ramp that would have been scandalous to OSHA and drove across the country with my younger brother's cat in a carrier and a box of cookware that sounded like someone drumming whenever I hit a bump. The cat, who is named Linda for reasons that won't survive explanation, yelled at me for 87% of the trip and then forgave me in a single instant when I opened a can of tuna in a motel room somewhere flat. My younger brother is exactly who he has always been, which is to say he is a menace with good intentions. He had arranged an apartment for me in a building with a landlord who keeps a parrot named Brenda that screams Freebird whenever anyone knocks. The first time it happened, I made eye contact with my brother and he actually fell down laughing. My therapist and I are still meeting, now on a time difference that makes me feel like I'm calling into a very supportive morning radio show. A week after I moved here, my older brother, eldest, who I don't talk to much and who communicates primarily in weather warnings and critiques of coffee, showed up with a toolbox and a six-pack to help put up shelves. He does not put up shelves. He supervises shelf putting like he's OSHA. We put up the shelves. He put a level on things that didn't need levels. When we were done, he opened a beer, stared at my ceiling for a while, and then told me he was sorry he gave me grief about the wedding party swap. He said he understood now that what happened wasn't a brother politics thing, it was a line in the sand thing, and he had spent most of our childhood pretending lines weren't real because it made our house easier to live in. We are not suddenly best friends, but we moved an inch closer, and an inch is a lot when you've been at a standstill for years. As for my newly married brother, he sent me a message that did not ask me to perform anything. It said, "I handled that badly. I'm working on why I needed you to do something for me that you said you couldn't do. I won't ask again. Can we talk when you're ready?" It read like a man who had finally realized a boundary isn't a dare. We met at a diner because I wanted fries in front of me while we hashed out our feelings. He looked like 5 different times of day. He said some things I needed to hear. He asked some questions I didn't answer. He told me he had told himself a story where my singing at his wedding would fix something in our family that he wasn't willing to face directly, and that when reality didn't match the story, he decided the problem was me instead of the story. I told him I don't trust him with this part of me, and that trust is not a karaoke track you can request at the chorus. He nodded and didn't try to get the last word, and that helped, because life insists on being stupidly on the nose. I got roped into helping at my younger brother's station's charity chili cook-off. The MC no-showed, and there was this frantic moment where someone who definitely knows my mother said, "Oh, Op can sing to kill time." My brother stood up on a folding chair and shouted, "He doesn't sing, but he will judge your beans," and then handed me a clipboard with the solemn authority of a federal appointment. I judged the beans. I nearly died on one called Wrath of God, which was mostly capsaicin and malice. I declared the winner a mild, unassuming entry that tasted like the safest day of your life. Afterwards, a teenager from a nearby community center asked if I'd ever played bass and would I be willing to come talk to their little after-school band. I said yes before I remembered to insert fear and hesitation. I go every Thursday now. I sit in a room with kids who genuinely think 4 chords is the promised land, and I show them that sometimes the most interesting thing you can do is take one note out. I told them at the beginning I don't sing. They nodded like I had told them I'm allergic to shellfish, and then they handed me a bass that had seen war. It's the kind of joy that doesn't borrow from anywhere else. My dad flew out last weekend. We went to a baseball game and spent 7 innings having those half conversations that dads have, interrupted by people selling pretzels and the national anthem and a short toddler riot. In the 8th inning, he told me he was sorry for not shutting down the karaoke trap faster. He said he had thought being neutral meant being kind, and he had finally noticed that neutrality is just picking a side quietly. He said he doesn't want to be quiet anymore. Then he bought me a foam finger like he was re-enlisting in fatherhood with flair. I still haven't sung. Not in the shower, not in the car, not when Linda yowls along to Brenda the Freebird parrot and the two of them make a noise that sounds like a haunted kettle. I don't miss it. I miss Mason, and missing Mason is not the same thing as wanting to resurrect a hobby to prove something to people who didn't know him. I pick up my bass more. I replaced my old strap with his. It squeaked the first time I adjusted it, and I had to sit down because of course it did, because the universe has a sense of humor and it always sounds like a squeak. There is a box in my living room that I still haven't put away. It has the flash drive, a few old set lists we scrawled on napkins, the strap when I'm not using it. Sometimes I trip over it and swear at it and then pick it up and move it to another inconvenient location. It feels right for it to be in the way, not like an obstacle, but like a reminder that what I choose to carry is mine to arrange. I don't need anyone to tell me how to hold it. I don't need to set it down to prove I'm strong. I'm good. Not in the way people say when they're trying to get out of a conversation, but in the way where my days have texture again. I have a neighbor who bakes bread at midnight and leaves loaves on the stairs because she is nocturnal and generous. I have teenagers who are currently convinced they invented syncopation. I have a brother who is trying. I have another brother who is chaos. I have a dad who learned a new word, boundary. I have a mom I love from a distance that doesn't have to be forever. And I have this one part of me that stayed with me, even when everyone else thought they knew better what to do with it. I'll be keeping it. Update 5. Brenda the parrot has learned a second song. It's Sweet Caroline, except she only knows ba 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 and she deploys it at unpredictable intervals like a deranged car alarm. The first time it happened at 7 a.m., Linda the cat went vertical like a cartoon and then treated me like I personally wrote the sheet music. I tell you this because it felt like foreshadowing and then, predictably, it was. The after-school band got better. Not good in the way adults mean when they say good, but better in that way where you can see their brains figure out a chord change and their eyes do that quick little light thing that makes you want to hand them the entire world wrapped in a towel. 2 weeks ago, the director pulled me into his office, which is a generous word for a cinderblock cube with a desk that lists to the left. He told me they're losing their grant. There were budget cuts and a city council meeting and all the usual bureaucratic barnacles, and now the music program is a line item that someone with a spreadsheet and no eyebrows decided could go. He said we had 3 months. I said, what do we need? He said money. I said no, specifically. He said a number I can't casually pull out of my couch cushions, unless my couch has started printing currency while I sleep. He said they tried the traditional stuff, bake sales, crowdfunding, a fireman calendar that nobody wanted because apparently you can't put first responders and tastefully shirtless in the same sentence without the ethics committee developing a rash. He asked me if I knew any bands. I said yes, upsettingly, but they're either dead, divorced, or into accounting now. He said, how do you feel about a showcase? And I did not like how my heart leapt like a dog that found its old leash. We did it anyway. It felt, immediately, like deciding to host a wedding in a storm cellar and inviting the weather. Every decision had tiny fangs. Venue? We called everywhere that didn't smell like spilled beer and regret. Turns out community rooms and small theaters are both expensive and booked by people with hobbies that involve interpretative scarves. And then the teenager with a bass that previously belonged to a pirate said, what about the beanery? I said, that is not real, and she said, the coffee shop with the crooked O in the sign. And I realized she meant the exact place where Mason and I used to play until the espresso machine threatened to unionize. I went to look. The O is still crooked, like it kinks its neck when you drive by. The couches have been reupholstered but somehow still manage to feel damp. There's a nail on the back wall with no function, probably the one where someone hung a flyer once and never took it down. The owner is new. She has forearms that suggest she could carry 3 milk crates and an unruly child at the same time. When I told her what we wanted, she did that half smile people do right before they throw in something for free. She gave us a Sunday afternoon and a promise that she'd angle the houseplants to hide the worst of the drywall scars. When she asked for a name to put on the chalkboard out front, the kids came up with Save Our Sound, which sounds like a marine mammal rescue, but I didn't have the heart to fix it. The family problem part showed up like thunder on an app with bad graphics. You cannot plan a fundraiser in a town my mother has ever lived in without my mother understanding instinctively what time to arrive and which corner to commandeer. I called her. I decided I would rather set the table than let her do it with lace and guilt. I told her what I was doing and what I was not doing. I said, clearly, that I am not singing, that I am playing bass behind teenagers who have more courage than propriety, and that if she wants to attend, she has to be there as an audience member with hands and mouth in the standard configuration. She was quiet in the way that means either an iceberg is moving or a thaw is. Then she said she would like to come and that she would bring a check and no comments. I said all right. I wrote it down like a contract because I am a man who loves to notarize vibes. My eldest brother showed up the next day with a tape measure and a habit of speaking to amps like they are recalcitrant subcontractors. He met the coffee shop's power strip situation and immediately announced we needed gaffer tape and a miracle. My younger brother made posters with Sharpie slogans in his pathological handwriting that looks like ransom notes. He put no, he will not sing at the bottom like legal boilerplate. Then he printed staff on a dozen lanyards and handed one to Brenda the parrot, which is to say he hung it on my coat rack and declared the coat rack a security liaison. My newly married brother texted me that he and his wife would be there. He also offered to run the door because he is good with checklists when he is not trying to rewrite reality with them. He said he had a square reader and a folding table. He showed up with both and the kind of face you get when you are trying to be helpful in a space where you have previously been a human fire alarm. He asked me 3 times where I wanted the donation jar and did not once ask me to sing. If he had handed me a puppy too, it would not have been more obvious that he was trying. The kids rehearsed like they were trying to move tectonic plates. None of them have ever set foot in a space where people look up from laptops and decide whether you deserve applause. I told them to tune again and drink water and to please not start any song by saying sorry. They brought songs that sounded like Friends. One of them brought a song she wrote for her cousin who passed away 2 summers ago. She wanted to perform it because the pain had turned into something she could hold without it biting her, and because she said, in her very teenage way, that grief gets pissy if you ignore it. She asked if I would play bass. I said yes. I asked if she wanted to talk about it on the mic. She said no. She said the song would say the parts she wanted said. Her handwriting on the setlist was tiny and determined. The day of, the beanery smelled like cinnamon and dust. My neighbor left a loaf of bread on my doormat with a note that said for strength. Brenda the parrot, safely at home, contributed via Bluetooth. I refused to investigate. The room filled the way a room fills when people decide to be decent. It wasn't packed, but it was steady. The first group did that thing where all their amplifiers were on different planets and then they found each other in the chorus and grinned like they discovered electricity. Somebody's uncle yelled Freebird, because of course he did, and my brother stood up from the door, pointed at the poster and said, loudly and distinctly, he will not sing. There will be no bird, free or otherwise. The coffee shop owner comped him a scone. My mom came late. She sat at a two-top by the window. She had that face on like she was trying to push her expression around without touching it. My dad came separately and slid into the seat beside her with a gentle nod that said 1,000 little truce words all at once. He clapped after every song like he was in church. My mom kept her hands folded for the first 3 and then she started tapping one finger. If you'd asked her, she would have said it didn't count, that it was for rhythm and not for encouragement, and both could be true. There was a moment, and I could feel it coming like a train. The teenager who wrote the song looked at me right before we started. Her hands were shaking at a frequency that could have made coffee. I adjusted my strap and it squeaked, that same dumb squeak, like someone stepping on a rubber duck in a cathedral. She laughed into her hair and I laughed into my shoulder, and then we played. She sang like the inside of a bell. The room did that rare thing where its attention doesn't scatter and nobody thinks to film anything because their bodies are busy, being present. In the middle, the espresso machine wheezed and I thought about laughing, but the song caught my throat and held it still. At the end, she cried and handed me her pick as if I had done something big instead of the very small thing of standing where I said I would stand. The room clapped like a secret was kept. After, the coffee shop owner took the mic and told a story about her little brother and a trumpet. My eldest brother, who does not do feelings in public, suddenly needed to examine an outlet at a very low altitude. My younger brother had been running interference like a bouncer at a boundary club. He intercepted 2 people who tried to angle me toward the mic, one with, "Do you do requests?" and one with, "Just one verse." He said, cheerfully, he only does revenge ballads and our legal team advised against it, and then he handed them a square reader and made them donate $10 in exchange for flirting with bad behavior. My mom put an envelope in the jar. Later, when we counted the money in the back room and the kids pretended not to be feral about it, I saw her handwriting on the outside. It said, simply, for the kids. No note inside, just a check with a number that made my mouth hang open a little. No strings. She left without trying to be the last person to speak to me. She texted me after. It was 3 sentences. I'm proud of you. Not for singing. For the kids. I sat on a milk crate and stared at it for long enough that my younger brother came in, took my phone, read it, and said, "Ha," with a tone I've never heard before that sounded like a balloon not popping, but deflating politely. Sister-in-law ran merch like she had been waiting her whole life to alphabetize t-shirts. She had that light in her face like she'd been allowed to be useful in exactly the right way. My married brother worked the door like a man on parole from his own worst habits. He sent people away with stamps on their hands and not a single suggestion about what I should do with my throat. On the walk to my car, he told me the show was good. He said the teenagers made him feel the thing you feel when you watch a baby bird do the thing you know it can do but you still don't trust gravity to be polite about. He asked if he could donate monthly. He did not ask for a performance in exchange. We raised enough to limp. The director cried in the storage closet among the music stands like a man given a third lung. The city council, in their infinite wisdom, had an emergency meeting that did nothing and then scheduled another meeting to do more nothing, so we are now the kind of outfit that will fund ourselves via caramel macchiatos and the generosity of strangers until further notice. The beanery asked if the kids want a monthly slot. The kids pretended to be cool and then failed and made noises like birds with their feet caught in happiness. Mason's mom came, and I did not know she would, because the invitation was a text that said, "The internet has me now," which is something you say when you have learned to click and then your heart follows your hands. She sat with her hands wrapped around a mug as if steam could make new bones. She watched. When the show ended, she hugged me and told me the strap looked right where it was. She did not say his name like a weight. She said it like a window. She pressed a photo into my hand of the county fair, the year we wore shirts with a starch problem. Our faces are both doing something dumb and alive. I put it in the box by my door when I got home and tripped over it on purpose the next morning. There was one more thing, because life has a sense of stagecraft. During cleanup, someone found a folded piece of paper under a chair. It was a set list from some night long ago, because coffee shops never become new, they just accrue layers and hope the mold stays decorative. Our handwriting, my handwriting, a scribble about a cupcake discount. The last song had a question mark next to it in Mason's scrawl. On the back, there was a phone number I don't remember writing and a doodle of a cow because apparently cow doodles haunt me. I stood there with the paper between my fingers and thought about how question marks can be both invitations and warning signs. Then I put it back in the layer where I found it. That night didn't need a resurrection. It needed to be where it was. We were where we are. This week, the community center hired me, poorly, like a place that knows what it needs but feels weird paying for it. I am now the part-time music wrangler. My official title is artist in residence, which makes me laugh whenever I say it because I live in a one-bedroom apartment with a neighbor who needs bread at witching hour and a parrot that yells ba 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 at my mailman. The kids call me coach. One of them told me I walk like a bass line. I took it as a compliment because I believe in translating teenage into English in the most benevolent way possible. I still haven't sung. The temptation machine has not been quiet. At the second showcase, a man in a hat that looked like a personality trait asked me for just the harmony. The parrot has started doing a noise that sounds suspiciously like the world's worst warm-up. My shower has perfect acoustics and offers itself to me every morning like a hostage negotiator. I don't take the deal. I don't not take the deal because I'm stubborn. I don't take it because everything that needs to move already is, and movement isn't always a sound. My mother called and said she found a therapist. She said it like confession, like she had been saving it up and had finally found the courage to put it down. I said I was glad. She said it's hard and she doesn't like the chair. I said my chair squeaks, too. We didn't fix anything. We did something smaller and more audacious. We did not try to. She told me she made cookies for the kids at the center. I told her I'll pick them up at the curb and I will tell the kids to grade them. She said, let me guess. Your brother will be the rubric. I said yes, and she laughed, and then she told me she was going to be at the back of the room next time with her hands where they belong. Last night, my eldest brother came over with a level for my picture frames. My younger brother brought Linda and a bag of jalapeno chips, which Linda tried to assassinate herself with. We put the old setlist photo on the wall, Mason and me with our dumb grins, next to a poster the kids made that says, in green marker, thank you coach for teaching us how not to trip over our cables. The frames are crooked because it pleases me. My brothers drank my terrible beer and we argued about whether chili should contain beans like civilized barbarians. Brenda punctuated our debate with ba ba ba, like she was chanting for beans. My married brother texted later to ask how much the center still needs to bridge the summer. He signed off with, proud of you. Not for anything, just in general. It landed like a feather and like a brick. I told him the number. He sent the money this morning, and a note that said, simply, no strings. I told him to come to the next show and bring his wife and is listening. There isn't a moral here. There's a room that smells like coffee and talent, a cat named Linda who forgives me before I deserve it, a parrot that knows exactly 3 syllables and has chosen a life where they are always exactly 3 too many, a mother who is learning that loving something doesn't entitle you to rearrange it, a father who buys concessions like amends, brothers who are beginning to understand that a boundary is where you meet someone, not where you avoid them. There's a strap that squeaks, and it still gets me, every time, but it gets me like a hand on the shoulder, not like a trapdoor. There are kids with calluses and pride and an emerging respect for metronomes. There is me, standing a half step out of the spotlight, holding the low end steady while they figure out how to fly in time. I don't know what comes next. I suspect it will involve Brenda's burgeoning repertoire and someone trying to plug a power strip into itself like a snake devouring its own tail. It will involve my mom sitting in the back counting measures instead of mistakes. It will involve my brother asking better questions and not trying to fix the answers. It will involve me picking up a bass and putting it down and picking it up again, not because I owe anybody a story, but because I like what it does to a room. That's the whole thing. That's the small miracle. We're good. Not capital G good with a soundtrack. Just the kind that makes it worth finding a chair and staying for the second set.